All right. Grace, mercy, and peace from him who is and was and is to come very soon, I'm certain. This is Rogue Diabetic, and welcome to the Digital Wilderness. So I think that I found a kind of fun rabbit hole to dive down that we might be able to get some mileage out of. Um, I don't know if it's going to go the distance, but if it does, I'm not trying to do any Freemasonic hand signals there. But if it goes the distance, this will be epic. Completely, totally epic in the most fantastic and retarded sort of way. So, uh, in previous videos, I've discussed the possibility that Donald Trump could end up as president again, vis-a-vis the Speaker of the House. Okay, Trump becomes Speaker of the House. Biden and Kamala Harris are impeached simultaneously. So maybe Kamala is impeached first. Maybe Biden is impeached first, but before he has a chance to nominate a vice president and for that nominee to be confirmed, Harris is impeached, right? Because they impeached Trump lickety split last time. The second time he was impeached, and so there's no rule that says that it has to go on for months and months. But in order for this scenario to be anywhere near plausible, it would have to be fast. They would have to either impeach the vice president first and then move on to impeachment of the president, right? And impeach and remove. Not just impeach and remove, and then impeach and remove the president before he could nominate a vice president. And of course, the president's nominee, vice presidential nominee would have to be confirmed by the Senate. Okay, which is a potential barrier too. Which is a kind of a complication. That like if you went out both of them at once, then it's like, and this is like, I mean, 20 years ago you would be like, if anybody had like put out some sort of fantasy fiction about a scenario like this, everybody would have been like, get out. Get out of here. This is like I mean, it's interesting fiction. It's interesting political science fiction, but it's like this isn't like something that would actually ever really happen. Okay, but in the upside down bizarro world that we live in today, this is actually, this whole theory is actually starting to gain some traction. So, and I have a little bit of a historical perspective on this. Okay, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Like, I'm not an old guy, or I don't think I'm an old guy, but some of you might say that I am. But I'm not a young guy. Okay, and I was that kid. I was that kid who all my friends had John Elway posters hanging on the walls of their bedrooms when when we were growing up, and I had a poster of Ronald Reagan. So I've been watching this for a while. Okay, I've been watching this for like 40 years now, almost. And I'm telling you, there's like some guys that are like, there's a guy in the House of Representatives that has been in the House of Representatives for as long as I've been alive. Longer than I've been alive. Not a whole lot longer than I've been alive, but longer than I've been alive. And incidentally, he's a Republican. And it would fall on him to deliver the oath of office were Trump to be elected to be Speaker of the House. Now, I hadn't heard of anything as goofy as a Speaker of the House not being a member of the House of Representatives. I hadn't been aware that that was like even something that anybody considered. I always just thought it was assumed that the Speaker of the House would be a congressperson. Okay, now apparently from what I've been reading, there's like people outside of the House of Representatives have received votes for Speaker of the House, but no non-representative, no non-member has ever been elected to be Speaker of the House. But the funny thing about it is like if you read articles, if you're reading some of these press articles, you know they're like, oh well, there's nothing that says that he can't be. There's nothing that says that you have. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to be a member of the House of Representatives to be Speaker of the House. Now, I would argue, even if it were like me arguing against my own party, like let's say I was still a Republican and I had ever had any influence in the Republican Party, or then maybe even I was like a member of Congress myself, or a party official or whatever, I would argue against the idea. Just based on the fact that it's like it's assumed. The reason why they didn't specify is because it's obvious on its face. It's prima facie that it has to be a member. But that is not the one that doesn't look like the way it's going to roll out. Because even the academics and the Democrats aren't making that argument yet. Now maybe they will. Right? And I'm not afraid to give them ideas anymore. Because it's moot. It's irrelevant to me. I almost like... I mean, I don't have a dog in this fight anymore. And I would suspect at some point someone will make an argument similar to mine. That it was just never ruled upon anywhere. Because nobody who wasn't a member ever got close to being elected to be Speaker of the House who wasn't an actual member of Congress, who wasn't an actual elected member of the House of Representatives. I mean, but it is true. I guess you could say, if you were a strict constructionist, that there's nothing in the Constitution that specifically says that you can't be a member of Congress. Now, there's another thing about this scenario that I think is interesting, and this is the direction I actually thought they were going, or that they might be going, or if they were going this direction, that this would be the path that they would take. Would be that Trump would run for Congress. Okay, right? He would find a congressional district, buy a house there, find a congressional district that, you know, in Florida, preferably that had a retiring member of, you know, he would cherry pick a district that he knew he could win in, that the sitting Republican would either step aside for him to run, or that he could beat in the primary. Right? And then he would just run for Congress, become a member of Congress, then get elected to be the Speaker of the House of Representatives as a congressperson, as a congressman. Okay, but if you read that literature on this, that's not where they're pointing. That's not what they're pointing to right now. Now that's still plausible. That's still plausible because you have like I think you have until like June to get on the ballot in Florida. I mean, he's got a month, he's got a couple months at least to get on the ballot in a congressional district in Florida. Now there would be some residency issues perhaps that might prevent that. I mean, he might be kind of like stuck with the Mar-a-Lago district. And that's an interesting district because I was just looking at the electoral history of that district. And I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure what but that's flipped from red to blue fairly recently. Like I think George Bush won that district both times in a landslide. Okay, and then it became competitive under Obama. And maybe he won it the second time and not the first time or something like that. But then it became competitive under Obama. And then it actually like flipped solid blue, solid deep blue. When Trump ran for president. Like Trump lost it both times and lost it both times big. And Obama like won once or maybe twice, but it was close. And George Bush won by a huge margin both times that he ran. Okay, and I would have to go back to fact check myself on that. But that district has shifted from red to blue over the past several cycles. Okay. So that would be like, that would actually argue against Trump trying to run for Congress in that district at least. And it is starting to get late for him to try to establish residency and get on the ballot in a different district. Okay. I mean, I don't even know if it would be like, I suppose theoretically anything is possible. But I would think that if he were going to run for Congress, he would do so in a Florida congressional district as opposed to a New York congressional district. But once again, I mean, like this like the probability, the idea of like that any of this is based on reasonable, realistic probabilities anymore is really like, I mean, it's almost like the less probable it seems to be, the more likely that it is. So I don't know. So we can't rule that out entirely. But even if we could, even if we did rule that possibility out entirely, the press, certain Trump surrogates, and even certain Trump enemies, although they're not talking about it so much because they don't want to because the theory is that they don't want to lend any credence to something as nutty as this, right? But Newsweek is running articles entertaining this possibility. Okay, and I haven't seen anything in Time or CNN, and they're going to ignore it as long as they can. They're going to ignore it as long as they can, right? And then, like, when they do start to entertain it, they're going to be like, no. Right? Like back in 2016, remember when Donald Trump will never be president? Donald Trump. Right? And that's what motivated people to look at Trump in the first place. Was the smug dismissal by the press. And I don't want anybody out there to still think that I have like anything to do with Trump. I don't. But I'm just saying, in this insane world, right now, there's a possibility that Trump could get reinstated. as the president through this backdoor mechanism of him becoming the Speaker of the House without ever actually having been elected. Now, if you look at the 25th Amendment, the 25th Amendment doesn't specify it's president, vice president, right? But it doesn't specify the succession beyond that. Okay, it specifies that the Congress is supposed to pass legislation that specifies that that's up to Congress to specify the presidential succession after the vice president. Okay, and Harry Truman, who was president at the time, I believe that it was either he was either like in the Congress or the Senate, or he was in the vice president, or it might have even been president when that amendment was passed. He wanted the Speaker of the House to be third in line because the Speaker of the House was somebody that was elected by the people. Even though even though it wasn't representative of, but it kind of was, because the Speaker of the House is from the majority party. And the Speaker of the House is a member of Congress that's been elected by the people of their district. I mean, the rationale that the Freemason Harry Truman put forth as being the reason why you would want the Speaker of the House in third in line is because it would be somebody who was elected by the people. That was the legislative intent of putting the Speaker of the House in third place. So, and trust me, and there'll be few, if any, like real discussions about this. This is the closest that you're going to get to any sort of like, and I don't even think any of this shit is real anymore. It's all fake. They concocted this whole scenario. Truman was a Freemason. The founders were all Illuminists. Okay? And they've concocted this system where that they can just that they can use to create as much confusion and chaos as possible. Okay, it's Ordo ab chaos. Order out of chaos. And if you look on the back of one of your $1 bills or one of your $20 bills, it's Ordo or Novo, Ordo, Seclorum, a new world order. This has all been leading up to this. The last, I mean, really, I mean, you could say the last 6,000 years of human history has been leading up to this. The last 2,000 years of human history has been leading up to this. But definitely, without a doubt, the last 250 or so years of human history, America is the whore that rides the beast. And this is all part of the, I mean, like, if Donald Trump becomes president again, then I will be able to say with 100% certainty that he is the Antichrist. There'll be no doubt in my mind anymore. Not even 0.01%. So anyway, we'll talk about Vernon Coleman in the next installment of this. So like, share, subscribe. I'm out.